Good morning, everybody. Yes, guys, this is a morning ATR Network exclusive that we have for you guys. And guys, if you watch us regularly every Tuesday night, you know we're big wrestling fans. But some of us on the show, like yours truly, as you can see in the background behind me, are also diehard sports fans. So I figured, why not get the guy, you may not know him, but you definitely recognize his voice. You hear him every weeknight on ESPN Radio, Mr. Freddie Coleman. Freddie, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good, brother John. How's everything with you, my man?
Doing very well, doing very well. I know, like we said before we started, it's been some time since I've spoken to you, but the world right now of sports is incredibly crazy. Please.
Crazy is a good word but I think that's what makes it so much fun, whether you're talking about sports, whether you're reporting about sports, whether you're part of a sports event, and that is the best reality show around, that you don't know what's going to happen because nobody knows what's going to happen, whether they're in the middle of it or on the outside looking in. And I've told people time and time again, there's always going to be that insatiable need because you just don't know what the ending is going to look like. You may have a book that you've already written, John, about what you think the ending is going to look like. Then something topsy-turvy happens. And then you got to say, well, we got to change the book. And that book turns out to be better. So no matter how crazy things get, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Now, before we get into, I mean, believe me, there's stuff in the sports world I want to get with you on, but I want to get, people to kind of get to know who you are a little bit. What got, kind of tell your sort of how you got to ESPN and all that stuff.
Well, one of the things about getting the ESPN and ESPN Radio is that you never know when an opportunity is going to happen. And when it shows up, you can't just turn away from it. ESPN came along when I just got started in Albany Radio doing an afternoon drive time show with my buddy John Tobin on the Fox Sports affiliate in that great city, which is an underrated sports city and really an underrated sports area when it comes to the Capital District in upstate New York. And I had just gotten a job doing full time up there in February 2004. And our first show was the day after the Patriots and the Panthers had their Super Bowl, so we had plenty to talk about. So I'd already had in my mind, John, that I'm probably going to be in this market. If I'm in this market forever, that's not a bad thing because I'd always wanted to be in that market when I was working in Poughkeepsie, New York, and in Wappingers Falls, New York, and doing stuff around in the lower Hudson Valley. So all of a sudden, right around May of later on that year, Jason Barrett, who we know from Barrett Sports Media, at that time, he was a producer of Game Night, which was a 6-hour show that was happening each and every night of the week on ESPN Radio. And they had a vacancy, as I like to say. It wasn't so much an opening, it was more of a vacancy. And he thought I would be really, really good for it. And I said, well, I don't know if I would be able to be good for it. And at that point, John, I was thinking maybe I shouldn't leave. But I said, opportunities like this don't come around often. So I sent him my stuff. They brought me for an audition. And here it is 18 plus years later, still being a member of ESPN Radio. And there was a sports talk radio when I first got started. I graduated from college. So to wind up here at this point in my life, my career, I know how much of a blessing that is.
Now, like you said, you've been with ESPN Radio now since 2004. Is there one guest that you've had on that you pinch yourself that it's like, holy crap, I can't believe you had this person on?
Oh, there are way too many of those. I mean, I remember the first time that somebody along those lines, Larry Holmes, when he was in the studio and we had a chance to talk with him. We're talking about one of the, in my opinion, one of the 5-6 greatest heavyweights in the history of the heavyweight division, and having a chance to sit across from him and talk with him, and also meeting Tommy Hearns and interviewing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Venus Williams and even people outside of sports, having a chance to talk to Ice Cube and someone that was a major factor in changing the rap game and the hip hop game. So there have been so many people that I've been blessed to talk to and have a chance to share that kind of space with them to just narrow it down to one person. I don't know if I'd be able to do something like that.
But it's definitely, I mean, I've gotten a chance to listen to you a couple of times on ESPN Radio, and when you're on, either if it's with you or your partner now, Fitzsimmons, you guys always bring phenomenal stuff to the show, so I have to give you props on that.
Thank you, right. One thing we always tell people that you're always going to get the authentic me and Ian Fitzsimmons, and there are going to be plenty of times that we're completely disagree on things, or we're in the opposite side of things, but in a different way. But there are plenty of times that we're not afraid to challenge each other, and that's the beauty of what we've been able to do. But the bottom line, John, is that we make sure that people understand as much fun as you think we're having, you have to times that by 100, because I can't imagine a better partner to work with than somebody like him, who is gregarious, who is emotional, who does not mind putting his feelings out there because I'm the same way. And it really is an interesting mix. We have both of us are from Southern parents, but he grew up in the South and I grew up in the North. Normally that can be an oil and water mix, but it really, really works well with us because we have those different perspectives. And we're able to bring that to the show each and every night, no matter what the subject matter is.
Well, that's like with us when we do, we have our wrestling show. It's me and three other guys. We
Hmm.
each bring our own piece to the puzzle, and that's
Yeah.
what I think makes it so great. When you have somebody who you may have a downfall in one area, but that's their positive. So it's
Hmm.
like you kind of play off each other perfectly. But yes, I want to get now to the crazy world of sports right now because, like I said when we started this, sports right now is absolutely insane. I want to get going with the NFL right now.
Where do we begin? I mean,
Yeah,
seriously. Yeah, I mean, I put it on Twitter last night at Coleman ESPN, my handle. I said week 1 of the NFL was drunk. Week 2 is on drugs because we clearly saw that with all the games on Sunday, that even if those games weren't 2-score games or a 1-score game, there was always something compelling about what was going on. Whether the Dolphins come back being down by 21 points twice to the Baltimore Ravens, especially in the fourth quarter, the Jets scoring 14 points in literally less than 90 seconds to steal that game from the Cleveland Browns. How the Cowboys survived against the Cincinnati Bengals. What the Arizona Cardinals did, where Kyler Murray making that throw for the ages just to have a 2-point conversion to A.J. Green, and then Isaiah Simmons, who, for my money yesterday, was the best player in the field in that Raiders versus Cardinals game. He forced the fumble. Then Murphy Jr. with the scoop and score going the other way for the touchdown. I always tell people that people always talk about that the NFL, when they were in a downward slope and people are saying the NFL is bad, I said, the people are saying that had an agenda. They were hoping that the NFL is going to fail or that the NFL would not be the king of the jungle to the level where they were then and that they back are now. But you keep having these kind of games and you keep having those kind of compelling storylines before, during, and after. That's what makes the NFL, bigger than college football, bigger than the NBA, bigger than the NHL, bigger than Major League Baseball. And that track seems to be endless when it comes to the National Football League, John, to be honest with you.
well, one of the teams I want to look at, and unfortunately, maybe a little biased because it's actually my team, is the New York Giants. Are you surprised by their start right now, being that they are 2-0?
I think everybody's surprised by that, even the New York Giants, because I believe they picked the right guy in Brian Dable to be the head coach, and he's completely justified that faith that I had in him. But I will say this: the one thing that he established that was never ever established, whether Ben McAdoo is the head coach or whether Joe Judge was the head coach, they have an identity, and you saw it week 1 against the Tennessee Titans. They're down 13-0. Could have been very easy to get in panic mode and try to throw the ball over the place. Brian Dable said, we're going to be a run first team. We're going to have the passing game complement the running game, not the other way around. We're going to get after people on defense, and that's the way we're going to play. And we saw that after they were down 13-0 against the Tennessee Titans. We saw that early on yesterday, John, where they forced a fumble in the opening kickoff and they turn it into points. And the one thing that he's been able to do is that even when Daniel Jones makes a mistake, you don't see him losing his mind on the sidelines or throwing the headsets. That can undermine the confidence of a quarterback that has a lot of confidence crises that can happen at any given time during the game. But he stayed with his guy. When he needed Daniel Jones to make a play with his legs, he was able to do that. When he needed him to make a play with his arm, he was able to do that. So that's the one thing that Brian Dable has really done that has kind of been surprising, that we don't have to guess what the identity of the New York Giants is. We clearly know what that is, and it's been a big factor why they've been able to win 2 one-score games, beating Tennessee on the road and beating Carolina on Sunday.
Well, now I know a lot of people I know in New York have been saying that they have to move on from Daniel Jones. Do you think that's the case with them? That after this season they're going to move on from him, or do you think this season is going to be determining whether or not he stays with this team? Because I know he's on the final year of his rookie deal.
Well, this thing's going to determine that. And a lot of people were wondering about that. And I've been a big believer saying, well, even though they didn't draft him, whether it comes to Shane or Brian Dable, you want to give this guy a chance to see if he can be your quarterback, because we're not talking about a veteran quarterback or quarterback at the end of his career. We're still talking about a relatively young man when it comes to Daniel Jones playing quarterback in the National Football League. So everybody wanted to throw dirt on his Giants career. And I said, well, how about let the season play out? Because they'll know right away if he's not the guy. Even if they're winning, they may try to bring somebody else in or give somebody else more love, or just really manage the game plan regarding Daniel Jones if they have their eyes on somebody else. So I'm a big believer that let this season play out, see what happens. And they'll be very, very good, very judicious at making whatever decision is going to be out there, because you're going to move on from Daniel Jones. Does that mean you go after a veteran presence, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo next year? Do you try to trade for somebody else, or do you give the keys to the kingdom to a quarterback next year as a rookie and then hope for the best? In essence, you're giving your head coach 2 rookie seasons if you're going to do that. So I'm a big believer that 15 games to play. We'll find out what his future is going to be. If it's going to be in New York when it comes to Daniel Jones or somewhere else, probably as a career backup outside of New York.
Well, my thing with that is with Daniel Jones, and believe me, he's a decent quarterback. My thing with him is he didn't have that time to get adjusted. Because if you remember, Eli Manning retired, and they kind of said, okay, Daniel, here are the keys, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like you've seen it in other places. For example, look at Green Bay, and this is the bad example, but it's the best one I can come up with. We went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Brett Favre was able to mentor Rodgers for a couple of seasons. Eli was basically, okay, you retire, okay, we're going to bring Daniel Jones in, okay, he's our quarterback. So it's like, and I know a lot of people in New York want to run him out of town, but like you just said, I'm in the mentality, give him a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, he hasn't had, this would be what, his 3rd coach since he's been a pro?
And it's 4th different offensive coordinator.
Most people, to me, don't go through that many coaches in a career.
Yeah.
And he's gone through a career already.
Yeah, and you know what, John, to your point, when you don't have the same offensive system, it can be very hard to develop a rhythm and develop a consistency. No matter what people have said about the whole Brett Favre and Rodgers situation, the common denominator was the offensive system and Mike Holmgren being the head coach. So there was an easy way to have that succession plan. When Green Bay decided that Brett Favre was too old for the system, they wanted to get Aaron Rodgers at playing time because they knew what they had and they saw that each and every day in practice. If you're going to have any kind of quarterback that you want to get better and better and better, it can't just be changing offensive coordinators and coaches every year like you're changing razors in a bathroom. You look at Patrick Mahomes, but they had the succession plan from him to Alex Smith, but the common denominator was Andy Reid was still the coach and that was still the same offense. So there was a familiarity that he didn't have to worry about not having. Daniel Jones has never had an offense where he could get familiar, so I'm sure for the first time in his NFL life, he's thinking, I can do some things here, but at least I'll get a chance to grow in this offense, and I'll get a chance to have a more than a puncher's chance of seeing what I can do by not having this kind of topsy-turvy turmoil that's been a part of his NFL career so far.
And, I mean, you look at the Giants' early schedule. I looked at it yesterday. There's a good chance they could be going 4-0 before they get to that Green Bay game, Week 5.
Well, here's the deal with the NFL. A lot of people thought the Cleveland Browns could be 4-0, and all of a sudden now they're 1-1. Now they got a Thursday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers because nobody thought they would lose to the New York Jets, as bad as the Jets were against the Baltimore Ravens opening day. And I've said this time and time again, John, and I keep being proven right all the time, but I'm never going to be tired of being right and saying this. The NFL is not a game-by-game. It's not a year-by-year. It is a second-by-second league. And, yes, there's a prime example of that. If you told anybody the Baltimore Ravens have a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter at home and lose that game, they would have said apparently everybody fell down, but everybody did not fall down. If you told anybody that the Cleveland Browns, once they got that touchdown, even though they missed the extra point up 30-17 with 122 to play, that they were not going to find a way to beat the New York Jets, they would have said you were crazy, and the Jets come back and they win 31-30. It keeps being proven time and time again. The NFL game is not just a second-by-second league. It's also an inch-by-inch league. 1 inch can determine if you continue a drive and win the ball game or if you get a drive stopped and the team goes the other way and they get a score. Look at the Chicago Bears game last night against the Green Bay Packers. Inches, it was decided that Justin Fields did not get into the end zone. And you can question the play call all you want, running shotgun inside the 1 yard line. I get that. But he still didn't get in. So all of a sudden, instead of a 24-10 game, it's a 24-17 game. What happens? It's 24-10. Green Bay goes down. They take time with the clock. They get that field goal to put the game away. The NFL, more than ever before, in modern football, second by second, inch by inch, you got to make sure that those things are on your side because they're not. That could be the difference between winning a game and losing a game or getting into the playoffs.
Well, you brought up Baltimore, and I want to get into them quickly. What's your thoughts on the whole thing with Lamar Jackson?
He's been terrific the first couple of games, and I know a lot of people are saying, why is he betting on himself? But it's not like he's betting on himself and he's not getting paid any money in 2022, John. He's still getting $23 million in the final year of his rookie contract. And I applaud the fact that he believes that, and everybody says, well, the style that he plays, look, it's the NFL. You are a play away in a violent league from being injured. Ask Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers, where he has a broken ankle. He's going to have surgery. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo's back as a starting quarterback for a team that got to the NFC Championship game last year. So many people are banging on him saying, why are you betting on yourself without a contract? he did not go into this season not getting paid. And I guarantee you that Lamar Jackson took out an insurance policy that if something happens to him, he's going to get his rightful due when it comes to taking care of himself. So people can look at it and say, I wouldn't do that. Well, you're not Lamar Jackson. You don't play the way that he plays, and you're not successful the way that he's been able to be a success with the Baltimore Ravens. So the way he started this season, he's been tremendous. I mean, the defense failed him yesterday more than anything else. You put up 38 points, supposed to win that football game, and have the defense give it back and have 2 blown coverages and let Tyreek Hill get behind the secondary. So as far as I'm concerned, Lamar Jackson, John, so far so good in 2022.
And then last football thing I want to get before we get to some baseball talk is that other New York team. Oh, not Buffalo. Talk about the New York Jets. What's your thoughts on their start to the season?
Well, I give Robert Saleh a lot of credit because he basically called out those who were banging on his team, and then his team went out there and had his back by not allowing themselves to start 0-2. And having Joe Flacco as that calming demeanor was a big, big deal, but also Garrett Wilson. If he continues to play like that, now you got some guys on the outside that if you're Zach Wilson, the quarterback, when you come back, you can say, well, I can't screw this up because what we've been able to do so far offensively, if they're able to progress and trampoline up what we saw on Sunday, having that comeback win against the Cleveland Browns, they do have better players. And I think a lot of that mentality has to get out of their heads thinking that, okay, we are in this situation where we normally lose those games. They were in that situation yesterday, John, and they did lose that game. They kept believing, they kept fighting, they kept trying, and they were able to make their own breaks and make their own luck. So I want this could be the start of a turnaround because before that, when he talked about keeping receipts, I said, hey, Coach Saleh, you can't put that out there when you're 4-14. So you better hope that your team wins and has your back. Well, the week after that, Coach Saleh won, receipts nothing. So we'll see if he can add more victories after putting that statement out there last week. And then his team had his back not even 6 days later.
Well, that's what I'm curious to see with this Jets team is I've never seen a team before that the quarterback competition it could go either way. Mm-hmm. Because not only do you have Flacco, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, Mike White is still on the team.
Yep.
And he had a nice couple of games last season. So, and I agree with you. To me, if you're Zach Wilson, you come back from your injury, you almost have to play at top level stardom because you have very little room for error on this team.
Right.
And well, my question is this: does that almost do more harm than good to a young quarterback like that?
Well, that's a good question, John. And if it does more harm than good to Zach Wilson, then you drafted the wrong guy. If you're the New York Jets, if that's going to unnerve him by coming back and putting that kind of pressure on him, if anything, you should embody that pressure. If you're Zach Wilson, you should go out there and say, yeah, I'm not going to be the one that screws that up. If that makes him retreat from a confidence and playing standpoint, then the Jets have a lot more questions about him when this season is over. And I know it's only been not even year 2 when it comes to Zach Wilson. He hasn't played a game yet in year 2. But I said before this season, if we're having the same kind of questions about Zach Wilson, then the Jets have a lot of questions. If he's still making the same mistakes in year 2 with better personnel, the way he made in year 1 with that lack of personnel, then the Jets drafted the wrong guy. And then a lot of people are going to say, well, you have Mac Jones that was there. You had Justin Fields that was there. You even had Trey Lance that was there. You decided on Zach Wilson, who people have questions about coming out of BYU. So that's going to be interesting that if he comes back, let's say this offense is playing really well, and he comes back and they take a step or a couple of steps back, that's going to be a lot of questions that the Jets don't want to answer, but that they have no choice at the most important position in sports when it comes to playing quarterback.
I mean, it would be nice for the Jets to actually do something, especially now you don't have Brady in that division. And, yeah, Buffalo's a tough team. Miami is a tough team. But it'll be nice for the Jets to actually do something for once after all the years of dealing with Brady. Speaking about Brady, I want to get into that quickly. The brawl that happened in the Saints-Bucks game. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he started it. I mean, when it comes to Tom Brady, and he knew that guys were going to have his back when he's yelling at Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore was looking at him going, who the hell you think you're talking to? And Brady, we know about that competition spirit, and that can be very endearing, but to some players on the other side, it can be very off-putting, thinking like, man, you're not the boss of me, and you're not God in the National Football League. And especially when you have division games, especially, John, in that division, the NFC South, where teams do not like each other. The Panthers don't like the Falcons don't like the Saints don't like the Bucks don't like the Panthers. It's like a rectangular of hate involving that division in the NFC South. So the minute that jumped up, I said, oh boy. And then the next thing you have a Braveheart moment. And the one thing is, it was very calculated by Brady. certain teams that he knows the pulse of teams that don't play well angry. And the Saints are a team that can't play well angry because they don't have Sean Payton to calm things down. They don't have him to kind of level them off. The minute that happened, it really changed the specter of that game, because now all of a sudden Jameis Winston felt that he had to have his teammates back, and he throws 3 interceptions, including a pick 6. It was very calculated by Tom Brady that he knew exactly who he could get under the skin of and how that was going to have a serious effect, and positive for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and negative for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, that's the one thing I kind of find interesting when you have these divisions where the teams really hate each other. Because the other one that you can easily say is like the NFC East. The Giants,
I got a better one for the NFC West. Nobody likes anybody in that division. Cardinals can't stand the 49ers. 49ers can't stand the Seahawks. Seahawks can't stand the Kings of that division, the Rams. And that's the one thing I love about division football. And the NFL does the right thing by having a couple of those games early. Then you play division games late in the season. That's why I hate the 17-game schedule, because you don't get all division matchups in the final 2-3 weeks of the NFL season. But I'm not going to tell billionaires how to make more money when it comes to revenue. But yeah, the NFC East has always had that long-standing beef with each other. But look at the AFC North. The Bengals, Steelers, Browns, and the Ravens. Those are bloodbaths anytime those 4 teams get together. But that's been the beauty of the NFL, where you have those kind of games, and it leads to better football and, more importantly, more competitive football when you get division matchups, no matter what the records are.
And that's what I love when you get Giants and Dallas. Yeah, both teams may not be what they were years ago, but there's going to be there's going to be some grudge in that match. I mean, go back to the days when you had New England versus the Jets. And yeah, I mean, they may have not been on the same level, but they had issues with each other. But I want to move on now to baseball right now, because football, I could be on here for hours, but baseball is another sport that's near and dear to my heart, and especially being a New Yorker, both the Mets and the Yankees right now are in playoff mode, so to speak, and they're both. I think the Mets magic number now is 3. I think. Yeah.
Well, if they beat Milwaukee today, they'll clinch at least a playoff berth. So if they do that on Monday, they'll clinch a playoff berth.
Yeah. Let's first look at the Yankees, because the big thing with the Yankees is people thought that this team was going to have this massive collapse, and I said this to a few people that I work with, and I want to get your take on this. If George was still running this team, do you think Boone would still be the manager?
Oh, God, no. He would have gotten rid of him the minute they had any kind of slide, because George Steinbrenner was the ultimate ultra mega reflex action kind of owner, that if things weren't working well, that he was definitely going to make a move because he felt he had to make a move. Sometimes the best moves you make are the moves that you don't make. And I think the New York Yankees have gotten past that when it comes to George Steinbrenner. There are not too many owners of professional sports, John, that do that anymore, because you look as if you're a weak owner, that you have a lack of backbone as an owner. You're constantly making moves time and time again. George Steinbrenner would not want to be in the same class as Jerry Jones right now. We know what that's happened to the Dallas Cowboys. Although I think at times Jerry Jones has been too patient with that team, hang on to Jason Garrett far too long, trying to make things work to show that he can win without Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells. But the best thing that they did was, hey, baseball teams go through ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and they decided that, hey, Aaron Boone, he knew exactly what time it was, but they're also injured as well. Now guys starting to come back a little bit, and now that makes them more of a formidable team, that they're the only team, in my opinion, that can challenge the Astros in the American League. And Aaron Judge has carried this team. So the best thing he did was not putting any more pressure on Aaron Boone during the season. That would not have been a good thing for the New York Yankees.
Well, you bring up Judge, and I think as we're recording, I think he hit another 3 home runs as we speak. But with the season he's had, and the fact that I still think personally, I think he's going to at least tie Maris's record. I don't know if he's going to break it. Do you see him, first of all, I know he's on a 1-year contract, so he'll be a free agent at the end of the season. With the fact the Yankees are paying $30 million to Cole and are still paying the ridiculous contract to Stanton, is there any way you think the Yankees could financially afford Judge with the contract that he's probably going to be asking?
Well, they better figure out a way to financially afford him, because I guarantee you there's a team called the San Francisco Giants that would love nothing better to bring him back home, because that's the area where Aaron Judge is from. And there's another team called the New York Mets, where Steve Cohen would not mind putting that check out there and having that kind of stroke of a pen that Aaron Judge crossed the river and crossed the bridge and played for the New York Mets. So if you're the New York Yankees, you can't bank on saying, well, Aaron Judge did this in the Yankee pinstripes. He loves playing here. Aaron Judge, like, look, you looked out for yourselves by not giving me that extension I was looking for, and we went to arbitration. So if you're going to do that, you looked out for yourselves as an organization. Well, I'm going to look out for myself as a personal organization when it comes to Aaron Judge. If I'm the New York Yankees, you can ill afford to have a guy that, other than Shohei Ohtani, the Angels, is the biggest star in baseball. And he is literally carrying your baseball franchises on his back when it comes to attention, when it comes to notoriety in the land of football in the month of September. Where we're talking about Aaron Judge as much as we're talking about the NFL, not to the same level, of course, but he's still giving that kind of spotlight to Major League Baseball. If you're the New York Yankees, why would you want to have that guy leave the biggest organization in the world and go somewhere else because you decided you want to play whatever money politics you think is going to work? That's a guy that you open up the bank vault for because he has shown no interest in wanting to go somewhere else. That doesn't mean that he won't if you put him in a situation where he feels that he can, and he will in the case of Aaron Judge.
Well, I think you brought him the Mets up, and I said this to somebody a couple of days ago. If somehow the Yankees don't resign Judge for whatever reason, and he does become a Met, Yankee fans are going to be pissed off.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if Cashman and Boone would survive that one.
Well, put it this way. You can't put that on Cashman and Boone because they're not the ones calling the decisions and making those decisions regarding who's going to stay and who's going to leave. So I guarantee you, Brian Cashman is probably going to organization saying, let's not mess this up with this guy. Don't say that, well, we got this money and that money. There's no salary cap. There's not a salary cap in Major League Baseball. And the Yankees continue to print money with their ball club and also the Yes Network. So you can't throw the financial implication in the face of Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman when they're going to see a guy who could win the Triple Crown this year walk out the door and you don't give practically anything in return to that kind of value for a guy that's going to hit 60-plus home runs, knocking over 130 runs, and maybe win the batting crown as well in the American League. So the fans, it'd be the wrong thing for the fans to get on Brian Cashman as a general manager and Aaron Boone as a manager when they're not the ones making this ultimate decision what to do when it comes to Aaron Judge, what kind of contract they believe they should put out there for him, and if he's going to accept that contract to stay as a member of the New York Yankees.
Oh, yeah. I get that, but I know the way some Yankee fans act, and they're going to put the blame right on Boone and Cashman because they're going to feel like, especially Cashman, they're going to turn around and go, oh, they didn't want to offer him what he wanted. And to me, the year he's having right now, which first of all, in a contract year, this is the type of season you want to have. I'm not saying he's going to be, I'm figuring his contract, the new one he's going to be asking, I'm figuring probably $45 million a year he's going to be asking.
Mm-hmm.
Is what
I could see that, and I think he'll probably get it, but not for 8-9 years. I think that's more along the lines of maybe 4 to 5 years because the days of those kind of contracts that Albert Pujols got, that Alex Rodriguez got, that Mike Trout got, those days are over because it has been shown time and time again. You got to pay a lot of money to the guy at the end of his contract. That's not going to be the player that you got at the beginning of that contract. So even if he gets a deal that he's looking for that length, it's going to be so front loaded that they're not going to pay the financial price at the end of that contract. But if you're Aaron Judge, you're thinking, I bet on myself for this year. I can bet on myself for another 4 to 5 years, even as an older player. That's why he's not going to get that long contract. But if he continues to do that, he can name his price no matter what team is out there, whatever kind of contract he's going to get once the season is over.
You brought up, the long-term contracts, the 8-9-year deals. I personally don't like them because to me, you've never seen a player, and I remember even going back to the days when Barry Zito got the ridiculous contract from, was it San Fran? If I remember correctly?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was like, an 8-9-year deal. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to have him good for about maybe 3 years, and then he's going to fall apart. To me, it's like, financially, it doesn't make sense. In some aspects, if you get a guy young, like I think Atlanta just re-signed one of their young guys to a 10-year. But that I understand, though, because he's young enough now. You can have him as he gets to his prime. But I think once you hit like that 30, 31 age area, the 8-9-year deals should not be existent anymore. Because to me, at that point, you're in the prime of your career. You're either getting towards your prime or you're in your prime. And to turn around to a guy who's 31, 32 years old and say, oh, we're going to offer you a 9-year deal. Okay, so you're going to have him till he's going to be good till he's about 35, 36. But you still got to pay him those other years. So to me, I hope baseball gets rid of that those 8, 9, 10-year deals because to me, they're not. And I agree with you, they don't work.
And believe me, John, they have. They're not going to allow those kind of contracts for older players. Now you'll get a San Diego Padres signing Fernando Tatis Jr. early, although I want their buyer's remorse based on what has happened ever since they signed that contract. But that made a little bit more sense where it doesn't count that much against your quote unquote whatever budget you have, even though there's no salary cap in Major League Baseball. But yeah, those days of guys getting to that 30, 31 year of age mark, and they've had a great successful season, they don't get a contract that's going to last in the rest of their baseball lifetime. Yeah, Major League Baseball has shown in the last 5 to 6 years they are not going to give up those kind of contracts because, as you mentioned, those contracts never seem to work and nobody benefits at the end.
Now, I want to get to the other New York team right now that's surprisingly enough doing very well this season, and that's the New York Mets. And first of all, are you surprised being that Buck Showalter, first-year manager of this team, and also this team has improved so much more? Better?
No, I'm not, because Buck Showalter is a terrific manager, and he's the perfect guy you need to have where you have a mix of young and old, where he can make that work in the clubhouse. And the organization did the right thing by saying we need a baseball guy, but that understands young baseball minds. And Buck Showalter has always been tremendous for young baseball players, and also been a great conduit with older baseball players. Max Scherzer looks at him as a mentor, which is saying something because he's more of a mentor to younger players, the same way Buck Showalter has been for the New York Mets. So I'm not surprised that they're battling for a division championship with the Braves. I thought the Braves would win it, but I believe the Mets would be a playoff team. And so far, they've gone beyond those kind of expectations. But I thought they would be in the mix. And I think the best thing that can happen to them is that they have this dogfight with the Atlanta Braves because it's going to get them ready for playoff baseball. The Braves already know about that after winning the World Series last year. The Dodgers have been on cruise control since really May 1st, but they've run away and hit from that division in the NL West. But they're so good that it's very easy for them to turn it back on when they kind of dial it back down after winning the NL West about a week and a half ago. So I'm not worried about that. But with the New York Mets, it all comes down to pitching. It all comes down to hitting. They've been that timely team that can manufacture runs. And those things don't leave once the playoffs roll around. But you have the ability to do that. But they get any kind of terrific pitching. If DeGrom and Scherzer are relatively healthy, then you can put a guy like Bassett in the bullpen or Peterson in the bullpen to fortify that bullpen, arms coming out of there. They can really do a lot of mixing and matching to really take advantage of teams and take advantage of their weaknesses. So it's going to be a fun NL because you look at those three teams. You got the Dodgers, you got the Braves, and the Mets. And don't forget about the St. Louis Cardinals. That team is very sneaky good in the NL Central. That's a team that you do not want to run into for 9 innings in a wild card situation or in a series situation. To me, it's the Astros and Yankees on one side, and it's the Astros AL to lose. But in the National League, you can make a case for 4 teams, like I mentioned. The Mets, Braves, Dodgers, and Cardinals that can get out of the National League and get to the World Series.
And I mean, we've seen the Mets already they took 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers when they had their series coming. But again, like baseball fans know, postseason is a much different season than the regular season. Yeah, but I mean, it's also nice with the Mets where your 1-2 punches, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. To me, it kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah, and also having Edwin Diaz as a lights-out closer at the back end of the bullpen, where you get to the 9th inning, you have a guy that can throw 101 miles an hour with late life and has a wipeout slide that just devastates people, and he's not afraid to throw it at any time in the count. So you have those components, and then you have to hope that your bullpen is going to be a little bit better. It's been decent, but if it can be a little bit better in the playoffs, adding a couple arms to that bullpen to go with your starters, then all of a sudden you can really dictate that if you get an early lead, that you can dictate matchups and not have those matchups dictating to you what kind of pitches you can throw out there.
Well, do you think, obviously, we know the Mets will make the playoffs. I mean, right now, I think they would be the second seed right now. Do you think Buck would, especially like I said, game 1 and 2 would probably be Scherzer and DeGrom in some sort of either Scherzer DeGrom or DeGrom Scherzer? Do you think that he would still stick to them doing the pitch limit with them, or do you think it'll be okay? Try to get us to the 7th inning or even the 8th inning, and we'll either go to the bullpen or we'll go to Diaz and have him try to get a 6-out save. Do you think that would be the case with them?
Buck Showalter is good at reading the room, so whatever the room says at that moment, then that'll influence his decisions. He's been really, really good at that. If DeGrom gives you 6 quality innings, but it's throwing close to 95 pitches, he's not going to run him out there for the 7th inning, especially if they have a lead. He'll going to trust his bullpen. Now, if he's pitch economy where he's into the 7th inning, he hasn't even thrown 80 pitches, then heck yeah, he's going to say, yeah, give it the seventh inning, then we'll turn over in the eighth and ninth. That's going to dictate exactly what he's going to do. And he's always been really, really good at that. Even if the results have not shown up, he's always understood exactly when and where and how to do that when it comes to pitching matchups in the postseason. So I don't think that's going to change. I don't believe that's going to change with Buck Showalter, nor should it, because if your pitch is running white hot, okay, you run with him. If your pitch is not running white hot, you trust your bullpen is going to have your back.
Now, last thing I want to get to with baseball, and I have one basketball thing I want to get to quickly. The guy who I feel like never loses any power in his swing, that's Albert Pujols, who last I checked, I think he's 2 home runs away from entering the 700 club, which would be, and talk about a nice class to be a part of. You have Barry Bonds, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, and Pujols.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Pujols, do you think once he finally does retire, do you think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. You could put him in Hall of Fame right now. I mean, if I had my way, there's certain guys that shouldn't have to wait 5 years to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame or any Hall of Fame. And this guy was great the minute that he stepped on the field with the St. Louis Cardinals. And it's really cool that he's had this kind of renaissance in the final part, in the final year, in the city that drafted him, with the team that drafted him, where his home runs are either brought them closer to a lead or put them further in the lead or allowed them to take a lead. It's been impactful, the home runs that he has hit in the final month or so. And some of it's been a pitch hitting raw, clearly understand that, but he's been able to deliver. And it seems now that we got to the point, John, that when he doesn't deliver, we're surprised, because we've seen that from Albert Pujols. So you couldn't pick a more fitting end to a Hall of Fame career, that in the city you started in the place where you were drafted, and you're having a chance to impact the pennant race and getting a chance to play in the postseason. Plenty of people would kill for that, being the first ballot Hall of Famer. That's going to be Albert Pujols.
And with him, it's like, if he's doing this now, it would scare me to face him. Like you said before, St. Louis is always that one team that they can have no names on that team, but somehow they'll sneak their way in and have a run. One quick thing I want to get to with basketball is what's going on right now with Phoenix, with the Suns, and their owner. Now, I don't know all the details on this. I kind of have read bits and pieces of it. So can you kind of explain what's going on, so to speak, if you can?
Well, Robert Sarver, due to NBA allegations, they found that he had used a lot of racial and misogynistic language towards employees. So they suspended him for 1 year, where he can't have any contact with this team of the NBA, and fined him $10 million. And a lot of people still believe that he should not own the team. But Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, said it's hard to take away a team from an owner, because they've already gone down that road with Donald Sterling. And not a lot of owners, if any owners, have spoken up to say that you should take the team away from him. That being said, John, it's going to be very interesting with the Phoenix Suns team that last year had the best record in the NBA, and they got destroyed in Game 7 at home in the Western Conference semifinals by the Dallas Mavericks. Now you got this as a part of your in-season, what happened in the offseason or from seasons past. I can't wait to see how they're going to have to react to all those questions early on. And as the season goes along, that'll dissipate. But early on in preseason camp, those are going to be the questions. It's going to be that black cloud that's hanging over this organization that Chris Paul, Monty Williams, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, et cetera, are going to have to deal with those kind of questions no matter what they're doing on the basketball court. So that's where it gets sticky, and that's where it gets interesting, especially in the Western Conference, that now Golden State's back at the top of the heap. You got the Memphis Grizzlies that are coming on strong. Dallas Mavericks had a terrific offseason, bringing in Christian Wood to help out Luka Doncic. There's going to be a lot of terrific teams in the Western Conference. You got the Clippers. The Lakers should be better if everybody stays healthy, relatively speaking. It's a loaded Western Conference once again. And I got a Phoenix Suns team that dealt with turmoil on the basketball court at the end of the year, and now having turmoil that was not their own doing when it comes to the players and coaches, that they're going to have that carry into the regular season.
Well, you bring up that. Obviously, people who know me know I'm a Knicks fan, and I usually have no expectations for this team, because usually they start off very well and then they kind of fall apart. Last question I got, and it's actually in regards to the Knicks. Where do you see them doing this year? Especially, like you said, the West right now is so packed, so much talent right now. With the Knicks right now, do you think they have a shot?
They have a shot at the playoffs. I could see them being a 7th or a 6th seed, because Jalen Brunson, I think, is going to be pretty good for them. We have a point guard that can command the offense. I believe R.J. Barrett is going to completely able to really improve from what he did last year, where he had a terrific season for the Knicks. And Julius Randle has to get out of his own space. And I think that's where Tom Thibodeau has to come in and make sure that Julius Randle has to understand his role. So I could see them getting to a 6, no higher than a 6 spot, because the East is going to be better. The Brooklyn Nets, we know what they're going to do with everybody on the same page. You hope, if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, you got the Boston Celtics that got the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Toronto's going to be good once again. Philadelphia is going to be good. Can't forget about those teams. Also, the Atlanta Hawks. I love bringing DeJounte Murray where he is in the backcourt. Trae Young. Keep an eye on that basketball team. That's a team in the Atlanta Hawks that could be sneaky once again. So the Eastern Conference is definitely better. The Knicks should be a little bit better. I'm banking on that. And you can't forget about the Chicago Bulls, Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, the Bucks, I think, could get to the Eastern Conference Finals again, and get the NBA Finals again. So I can see this team in a better Eastern Conference getting to, at best, a 6 seed. I think they can get to the playoffs, but it won't be easy because so many teams ahead of them, they have those go-to guys. And who has to be that go-to guy for the New York Knicks that will strike fear into opponents when it comes to opposing game plans? Right now, the Knicks don't have that. They don't have that Giannis. They don't have that Kevin Durant. They don't even have, when you look at Chicago Bulls, that DeMar DeRozan down the stretch. If they can find that guy and he makes those kind of plays, then maybe they can do some things. But making the playoffs, I could see that. Higher than the 6th seed, no higher than that.
Hey, maybe the success that the Yankees, Mets, Jets, and Giants have had maybe can rub off on the Nets. Who knows?
Don't forget about the New York Rangers, what they were able to do in the postseason last year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it with all 4 of those teams. I think somebody put out a stat. It's like the first time, what was it?
Mm-hmm.
First time they had all won a game since like 2009 or something.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah, it was the last time that happened.
That to me is incredible. But Freddie, it was a blast talking to you again. It was a blast having you on. I definitely want to have you on again down the road, especially once you get more into the NFL season and MLB with the postseason. I definitely want to have you on again. But where can the listeners find you, and what do you have coming up on Simmons and on your show on ESPN Radio?
Okay, find me on Freddie Fitzsimmons with me and Ian Fitzsimmons from 9 p to 1 a.m. Monday through Friday. Hit me on Twitter anytime you want at Coleman ESPN. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of NFL to talk about this week, because I can't imagine what week 3 is going to look like after the first couple of weeks of the NFL season. So we're going to have a blast talking about those things. And college football starting to ramp up once again. As a matter of fact, where I think it's Georgia and everybody else right now after the first 3 to 4 weeks of college football season, because they are that good. So we'll have plenty to get into. And the NFL drive the needle, but there'll always be other stories that we'll wrap our heads and minds around that we're going to have a good time about.
Again, Freddie, I definitely recommend you give it a listen. It's really good stuff. But Freddie, thank you again, and the door is always open for you to come back on, and definitely want to have you on again.
My pleasure, John. You take care and continue success, my man.
Thank you. Guys, for Freddie Coleman, I'm John. This has been ATR Network exclusive. We'll catch you guys on the next one.